guys. Recently in class we've been talking about the Constitution. We took a look at the preamble. We took a look at the articles, Articles 1 through 7 of the Constitution. Today what we're going to talk about are the principles that are underlying the Constitution, the ideas that, what we saw in those articles, the ideas that those articles were based on. And more information can be found in this, Chapter 3, Section 4 of your textbook. First one we're going to talk about is popular sovereignty. And popular sovereignty is the notion that power lies with the people. Okay, states that the government should draw their powers from the consent of the governed, and you see this right off the bat with the preamble where it says, "We the people establish this Constitution." We the people are writing this Constitution. We the people are forming this government. Therefore, they have the power. This can again be seen in the provisions about the right of the citizens to vote. This is where the people get their power. It is through elections that people exercise their power most clearly. Second principle that we're going to look at is rule of law. Rule of law very simply means that law applies to everyone, even those who govern. Members of Congress, President, Vice President, Supreme Court justices, the rules are not exempt to them. The rule applies to everyone, and you can see this in Article 2 where it describes how we can remove elected officials from office with the process of impeachment. And right there you see one of the newspapers from when President Clinton was impeached. He was not removed from office, but he did face a perjury count, as you can see right there. Next principle that we're going to talk about is separation of powers. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the year, influenced by Baron de Montesquieu, who was a French philosopher. And he believed that the best way to protect liberty was to clearly separate the legislative, executive, and judicial functions of government and to assign each to a separate branch of government. So legislative, the lawmaking powers, the executive, law enforcing powers, and the judicial functions, or to interpret those laws, to assign each of those to a different group of people in government. And separation of powers, very simply, split of authority among legislative, executive, judicial branches, and that is what we have here under the Constitution. As you can see with this chart here, we have the executive branch with the president, his cabinet, the vice president, legislative branch to make the laws with Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, and then the judicial branch with the Supreme Court. And you can see the lower level courts there, the circuit courts and the district courts as well. Fourth principle here is a big one. System of checks and balances. Checks and balances means that each branch of government is able to restrain the power of others. This was an essential idea to protect against tyranny. All right. The president, as you can see in the graphic on the right here, can veto laws that are proposed by Congress and name federal judges. So, if Congress creates a law, the president can limit the congressional power by vetoing that law. He also limits the power of the judicial branch because he is naming some of those federal judges. Congress has a number of checks and balances as well. Congress can block presidential appointments. So we just said that the president has the power to name federal judges. Well, that appointment has to be approved by Congress. Same thing with treaties, where the president is making treaties, has to be approved by Congress. Congress also controls spending by the executive branch. This can be seen most frequently with the president's role as commander-in-chief. The president may have control of the armed forces. However, Congress has to fund the armed forces, so it's kind of hard to control the armed forces without funding. And also, Congress has the power to remove the president or judges through the impeachment process. And the Supreme Court, finally, they can check both branches of government by overturning laws and executive policies that they find to be unconstitutional. Last principle here is federalism. Federalism means that power is shared between the national government and the states. You can see in the graphic on the bottom here that we have our laws, local law down on the bottom, county law, state law, and then federal law. And that is an example of the federal law of the Supremacy Clause, which states federal law is supreme over all other laws.